I grew up on welfare and food stamps. My mom received welfare and food stamps at critical points in my childhood. And as a result, I had food security and enough. We never went without housing because my mom was able to get some housing help as well. And so we remained housed and fed while she put herself back to school, got a job that was able to sustain us, and then put us into the middle class. And ever since, both me and my 3 siblings have been productive, healthy members of society. What the federal and state level governments did was they invested in my siblings and I when we were children, and now we have grown up to be healthy, productive members of society. It was an investment. What I don't think people understand is when you don't help people at that critical stage of life, you end up paying for them either way, because paying for people who are in and out of prison, paying people who are dealing with the justice system in terms of public defenders, or even paying people who end up growing to be very unhealthy adults dealing with addiction, in and out of hospitals, or hospitals have to be reimbursed by the state for attending to people in emergency rooms who are in a constant state of trauma and cycle abuse and crisis, is expensive. We pay for it either way. It's just that in this case, for 2 to 3 years, while my mom was getting on her feet, the state invested in my family. And ever since, they have reaped hand over fist what they invested in us, because my mom and all 4 of my siblings have now been paying into that system robustly. But had I been homeless, or had I not had enough food, I don't know that it would have gone the way it went. We all became very good students. We all became very high functioning adults. And that is the story of the majority of people, the vast majority of people that receive this type of social support system. We also received Pell Grants, which comes from the Department of Education, which made it possible for my siblings and I to be educated, to get the jobs that they now have. So the next time you hear people disparaging social programs, you need to understand that you're literally talking about me. So that I should be the face of what you picture when you picture what are social programs helping in America. My face. I made a video about how I grew up on cash assistance and SNAP benefits. I said in that video that both me and 3 of my siblings, altogether my mom had 4 kids, we ended up not being in a precarious level of poverty. And because we had a certain level of stability, we were able to get good grades in school, go on to college. And now all 4 of us are very productive members of society who not only are civically minded, we also have made 30 to 100 times more. We have paid back the government from what we took as children into the system. So we're functioning, we contribute, and even the money that we would have taken by being on those benefits as kids has been paid back into the system 30 to 100-fold. The US government made an investment. I received hundreds and hundreds of comments from people who were agreeing with me. Comments like this one. This is my family's story too. I have 2 degrees and I make 6 figures and it's definitely an investment. Hundreds and hundreds of people agreeing that that's how their lives were and this is what they needed. And now they pay back into the system hand over fist. But the other type of comment I got were many, many, many people saying, yes, I agree, it could be good, but too many social safety nets have fraud involved, which I think is a wild thing to say. The proportion of people who think that there is fraud in that system, or that the fraud in that system should somehow eliminate that system, mind boggles me, because we would never say that about other places in the world where there is fraud. There's theft at Target, but you would never say Targets shouldn't exist. We know there is insurance fraud, but collectively we don't ever say insurance shouldn't exist. Although, to be honest, I think we might need to start asking that question. White collar crime, holy cow, banks, hedge funds, all kinds of investment fraud. But we don't say the financial sector shouldn't exist. White collar crime costs this country anywhere from over $400 billion to $1.3 trillion per year. It's estimated that 9.2% of social safety net programs are fraudulent. Participants are fraudulent, 9.2%. That means overwhelmingly, over 90% of people engaging in those services are doing so non-fraudulently. But the crazy part is over 10%, the FTC estimates that over 10% of publicly traded companies are engaging in some form of investment or securities fraud every single year.
So I want you to keep the same energy. If you're upset about fraud, I want you to keep the same energy for fraud that occurs everywhere, because it's costing us collectively far more dollars than social safety nets ever will. And yet somehow we don't look at it that way. Social safety nets also create so much wealth and income for our country, but we never look at it that way. The opportunity cost of allowing people to continue to flounder in poverty is an extraordinary cost that we fail to take into account. So the next time you hear someone talking about that welfare or social services, SNAP benefits, cash assistance, Social Security, there's too much fraud. We shouldn't have these things because there's too much fraud. Just remind them they need to keep the same energy for all the other much larger quantities of fraud that exist everywhere else. Acknowledge the fact that fraud does in fact exist across almost every plane of our existence as human beings, and yet we consider the benefits. Even if fraud exists, there is still a net benefit for everyone.